Hey.
Hello, I am Cheryl Peralt, and I'm here this beautiful Friday night for Friday Night Wake Up Call. And I am here in my home, and I've been doing this program since the beginning of April for the time of our pandemic and quarantine, inviting some friends of mine who are poets, writers, and songwriters to spend a little time for an hour on this program to talk about their writing, about their life before and during this time of quarantine, and share a bit of their art as well. And this evening, I am delighted to have my friends Dot Walsh and Carolyn Waters here to join, and Dot will be talking with me in just a minute until 7:30, and then Carolyn Waters will be here. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, and it's interesting because both Dot and Carolyn do so much in their art of writing, and for Carolyn of music and song for the community, for social justice and activism as well. So I'm glad that both women are here this evening to talk a little about their art. So, hi, Dot. Thank you for joining where you are in Dedham this evening.
Hi, Cheryl. It's good to be here. I can't imagine anybody I'd rather be talking with than you.
Well, thank you. And I feel the same. And it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you since January.
I know. The time goes by so fast, really. But
yeah.
So it's good to see you. And you kind of got me going on cleaning things up. I said, oh my gosh, let me get some things together here because we're in the process, as you know, of moving.
Yes, and perhaps people who are viewing don't know that, but now they do. It's quite something to be moving your home in the middle of all this going on of quarantine, and
Right.
you are in the process. And
Right.
What's that like for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, we just about got the broker and got it going. And he said, don't worry, you can still do it. People will come. And I said, I don't know if I want people coming during this time, but we did do it. And we didn't have too many people come. And then this lovely couple have bought it. So we have the final will be in June 19th. So it's very quick. It's happening. But it's crazy because now we're trying, nothing is really easy to do when you're during this time.
And when did you put it on the market?
Yeah, we put it on the market and
in March.
No, we didn't put it on till I think it was April.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's moved right along.
Yeah.
And anyway, so everything else has moved right along.
I guess so. Well, why not join with all the other transition going on, right?
Right, exactly. So I'm looking to come out the other portal and we'll have a new world.
Yes. All right. That sounds good. And that's what we'll talk a little bit with the work that you've been doing and striving for a new world
right.
In the work you've done for many decades now, right?
Right.
So let me just, oh, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I would just want to tell folks who aren't familiar with you, who are viewing, a little about you, that Dot Walsh here is an author, an educator, and a peace chaplain. She has worked at the Peace Abbey in Sherburne, Massachusetts. She's worked in human service management, pastoral counseling, outpatient treatment services, and cable TV as host of Oneness and Wellness. Dot has released a book, Finding Light in the Darkness, based on 20 years of working in the criminal justice correctional system. And more recently, she's worked as a hospice volunteer and is in the midst, I believe, of producing a program with a local pastor about facing fear in the time of pandemic of COVID-19, and working on a new book project, as I understand.
Right. So I just would correct you. That was just one program with
Oh,
the
okay.
pastor, but it's
Uh-huh.
not a continuing program. But I'm doing a little few. I did an article for the local newspaper about the whatever I wanted to write on, and I wrote about masks because I said, I came first. I was uh, going to hospice. I was a hospice volunteer, and they told me I had to wear a mask because I never had the flu shot.
Mm.
And so I said, well, all right. So I went in a few times, and then I said, well, I don't like this at all. So I told the director, I said, I think I'll just resign until the flu is over. And then guess what? We got
Yes.
the pig flu. So
Yeah.
now a mask is like second nature.
Isn't that interesting how that works?
It's like craziness. So I said, well, I'm used to my mask now. But now I said, my article focused on how people really didn't want to wear masks. And now you see people driving in cars all by themselves wearing a mask. I said, I wonder why they have to do that. You don't need to be in your car and have a mask on.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's a symbol of protection. And I think, in fact, I was walking. I said in the article, I was walking the other day, and this man came along, and he had a mask on, and he was walking briskly. And a woman came along who didn't have a mask, and he started swearing at her.
Mm.
And I thought, oh my gosh. And then I realized that there's a lot of violence now connected to the masks.
Yeah. Well, that is part of your work, raising awareness about the importance of peace and nonviolence in our world. And you have been working hard in many different areas for many years now. Um, I I wonder if you can speak first about the program of fear and pandemic. Maybe that taps into what you're talking about with
Okay,
reaction.
so I want to read a poem that I wrote a
Oh,
long time ago, and
yes.
it's only for me. It's not for other people unless you connect with it. But
Oh,
it was
please
for me,
do. Yes.
and it's called "In the Light of All Eternity," and people will know that's just something that I say all the time. So you may have heard the expression, or maybe not. It's a great tool to measure the importance of any given situation, like missed buses and slow traffic and broken dishes and things forgotten to do on the list, or the enormous bill you receive from the car mechanic after he finishes with your car. I mean, what would life be without your car? Just take a deep breath and say, in the light of all eternity, what does it matter? Kindness matters, compassion matters, love matters. These will last until eternity, and everything else is not really that important. So that kind of keeps me grounded and keeps me thinking about, okay, um, I know that there are so many people that are suffering. My daughter-in-law is a nurse. I know we have two nurses that live in our right on our street. And I know that it's a difficult time for the people working in stores, working in, you know, every area that puts themselves into some kind of, into a situation that could be not so good for them or their families. So I'm so appreciative of what people are doing. But there are a lot of people who that doesn't apply to, like me. And so, am I going to sit home and be shaking and be in fear? And I said, no. And when I was talking to Father Steve, I said the same thing. I said, no, put your mask on, get out and walk, do it. If you can get shopping for somebody in the neighborhood, do it. Whatever you can do to stay active and to stay with a program. And I know my friend that I walk with, she said, do the routine that you want to do, as much as you can. Get up,
So,
stretch, say your prayers, your meditation. I do meditation every morning. So after that meditation, I feel good. I feel ready to take on the day. And the weather's been beautiful. So I'm grateful, thankful, and that's it.
yes, well, that's wonderful advice, and it's important to hear and facing fear and coming to understand it. You've addressed, I think, you mentioned on this would be on your TV program that you
Right, right. It's in Oneness and Wellness. I did that program, and I'll be doing a program with DOSA, which is the Dedham Association for Substance Awareness. And so we're going to be doing a program. It'll be a series of programs, and working with Fred, who's been a long time in the healing and all substance abuse, whether it's drugs, alcohol. He knows about it.
So you'll be doing this while you're moving or even after you're moving?
While we're moving, it just keeps on, So I try to juggle things around. Andy's working on the house that we're moving into. So we're working at it. And I just feel there are days that I get overwhelmed, and then I have to get in touch with Dina. You know who she is, and we go out and blow bubbles as we're walking, or do something that's freeing, frees your spirit up.
Well, that's important to hear because I don't know folks who don't know you. As I read your bio, some of the work that you have done has been pretty intense in the world and being of support and assistance to different populations. For instance, hospice. What could you say? What did you do in hospice? How does that apply to what you're talking about now, facing death, people in their last days, and helping them with that?
Well, my heart goes out to people that can't be with their loved ones, that can't hold them or touch them, or I said to Andy, you keep me home. Don't ever send me to a hospital if I get sick, because I don't want that. I don't want to be in that situation. But I know sometimes it can't be helped. But I think the hospice, seeing people, when I was working in the hospice, wasn't there for too long, just a few months before I had to leave. I loved it. Janie. I saw Janie. I saw my neighbor Bob. I remember there were 3 people that were very close to me
who happened to be there.
Yeah, that happened to be there and passed away. And it was it was a blessing to be there and to be with them, at that time. So I did, you asked about, this was stories from prison, yes. Finding light in the darkness. And I do have a story if you'd like me to read it.
Well, that's some more of your work, and I would love for you to read some from that book that was published a number of years ago, and that's about your work. What was it, 20 years of span of time working in the Massachusetts prisons?
Right. And what I chose to share tonight is about, it's a story called Babies. And I thought because the Framingham Women's Prison is being closed. I don't know if you know that, but they're closing it. So I said, well, let me just honor the woman who was the first superintendent there, and wonderful. And she did amazing things, and she was pushed out they said that she did the wrong things, because this is what she did. Can you see this? I don't know if you can see that, but this is the women holding the flag. This is the women having a tea party. And she allowed them to have many wonderful things. So this is about, what I discovered was that there was a cemetery, and it was on the Framingham side. It was right on the line between Sherborne and Framingham. But they had moved it so that that wouldn't be in the Sherborne. They didn't want the Sherborne people, didn't want it in there. They didn't want the prison in their land. So here's a little bit of the poem, the story. I was introduced to the small neglected cemetery on the back road leading to the women's prison in a book, Box 99, that was the box number for the prison, by a former superintendent at the prison. Miriam Van Waters wrote about the women who gave birth while incarcerated, and of the babies who died and were buried in this place. The cemetery is in Sherburne, although the prison is across the border in Framingham. A nice boundary change for those who didn't want to live in a town that housed a prison. A few tiny markers identified the graves nestled under a huge tree that spread her mothering arms over them. Miriam was put on trial for the progressive direction she chose in her role as superintendent, and the cemetery was soon forgotten. I did have someone come into the Peace Abbey, and they started telling me their stories. And it turned out that they were a group of women who had given birth to children out of wedlock and then had to give them up for adoption out of shame. And the group asked if they could go there, and they raked, they planted flowers, they offered prayers for all the babies, the known and unknown, the named and nameless. So that was great. So I don't know if they've kept it, but that's still there because it's the property was allotted for that purpose.
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful story of a bit of healing of that area that these women brought. That once you became aware of what had happened, who those
Right.
lives were.
Yeah, and too bad that we can't do pictures because I had pictures of them. Miriam was also buried there, but this, you can't see it, but
Uh-huh. Yeah.
you know,
Who is
I'll show them to you
Dr.
sometime.
Miriam Waters is buried there?
Yes. Mhm.
How about that? Well, it's quite a story about her and the reform she brought over there to the prison. And I know that is something that is being addressed, discussed in these days of dealing with the pandemic and what is happening in our correctional.
Oh my gosh, the prisons are hotbeds for the virus because of the close proximity. You can't get away. You can't get 6 feet of distancing. That's ridiculous, to think that. And not only the prisoners themselves are, open to the virus, but all the people that work in the prisons.
Mhm.
And, that's become a huge, huge problem all over the country.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the many things we need to address as we go forward in this hopeful
Exactly.
world that you keep working toward. And this is a powerful book. It's about 1 page long or so, stories of these different moments and working with people in.
Right. And right, exactly. And yeah, and yeah, and that's so yeah, I tried to look for the book and I think I've given them all away and I couldn't even find a book here.
Oh dear, but they are available on Amazon and Damiano's Publishing, right?
That's right. Exactly. And anyway, that's that. And I was I don't know, I was on a Zoom meeting today with Louis Random
Yeah.
over at the Peace Abbey. So
Thank you.
he has a virtual hand washing. So every so often I like to join it because I like, the kids they're not kids, but the gang, we always call it the gang of the people from the life experience program. And so it's always a joy to be there and to see their faces and to,
Yes.
To say hello. So, and anyone who knows Louis, it's so funny. I mean, Andy was cleaning out things and he said, "Look what I found. I found your handcuffs."
Okay.
Because Louis was always one to, conscientious objection. And, if it got to that place, go forward. So I did it a couple of times with him. But the last time he was going to do it, I said, "Louis, no." If he goes forward, he's an amazing person and fun, a lot of fun.
He was the founder of the Peace Abbey in Sherburne.
Yes.
And that's where you worked as a chaplain for a number of years. And I know that you had given so many great moments happened, as I'm aware of. So much history of that Peace Abbey, and the Life Experience School continues on as a part of that for providing education to people dealing with different developmental disabilities.
Yes, and you can still go and visit the statues at, with the site of the Peace Abbey. The statue of Gandhi is still there, and the Emily the cow, and all of the walls with names of people who were who have passed on, who were peace activists in some way. And it's a beautiful place to visit, and you can still go and visit there. And then you can also visit the school. At some point, if we ever can move to that place where we can walk around more. But you'll see the statue of Emily the cow.
I
She was a
remember
great
Emily.
friend.
She traveled through our town, and the paparazzi was after her to get her picture until she was purchased by the Peace Abbey. It's a beautiful story. And some, I know that there were quite a few peace activists who received awards, the Courage of Conscience Award over.
Right. Now that's 165 people have received the Courage of Conscience Award.
So, name a few.
And I had this isn't a good picture, but I had the joy of presenting it to Rosa Parks. Mm-hmm. And I also had the joy of presenting it to Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So that was great. And that's a funny story, but I won't have time to tell that story, but that was that. And then also Nelson Mandela. I went down to South Africa, and Nelson Mandela was another person who, he was one of my heroes, and for what he did and how he did it, and the grace, and respect he had for nonviolence. Yes. So that was wonderful. And this was, you recognize that face? Can you see it?
Muhammad Ali.
That's it. Muhammad Ali, right?
My eyes are not good on this screen, but I could see that. How about that?
It's hard to show pictures, but you're doing great. You're doing a good job, that's for sure.
Yes. And I know you had the opportunity to meet Mother Teresa as part of your prison.
Oh my goodness, you just mentioned that. Now I'll show that. This is my mother with Mother Teresa. I don't know
about that. And that's just another day in the work of Dot Walsh.
She's been the two ladies have been my heroines while I've been packing up, and so I turn to them all the time and say, okay, now help me with this.
I know there's a wonderful documentary about you and the work as a peace chaplain over at the Peace Abbey in those days. And I don't know, let's see, if you have maybe one or what did you come away with after the Peace Abbey closed that you carry with you too, or?
Well, one of the things that carried through was Stonewalk.
Yes.
Stonewalk. And
what is that about?
So that's carrying, a 2-ton, a stone that weighs a ton, on a truck, not a truck, but a caisson that weighs a ton, and carrying that somewhere. So we went many, many different places.
But the stone represents.
Pardon?
The stone represents.
It represents all of those people who were killed as a result of violence in war or violence in some other way. So Lewis was hoping to go this. He said, we'll go down to, we'll start at a different place, and we'll go down to Washington. And he already had a place for it this summer. And that got erased. So I said, Lewis, how about a virtual walk? Yeah. And he said, maybe that would work. And I said, yeah, if you get, we could do that. It would be fun and get people in this place. And it had to be well organized, but that could happen. And so this is, you can't see them. I feel badly, but this was Japan and the stone in Japan. So the stone went to England. It went to Ireland, to England, then back to the States, and went from Boston to New York with the Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, who all lost loved ones in 9/11. Then it went to Japan, and it went to Korea.
So bringing the words of peace, of hope for peace, right?
Well, beautiful people all over the world that helped out with that. And I'll read you just a little thing that I wrote about Stonewalk, because I'm not going to read you the long one. We don't have enough time, but
we have about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, Stonewalk. Come, he says, and the call penetrates deep, deep into the place where heart and soul embrace. It's an ancient call, a call that the ancestors have answered in many places and in many times. It is the call of the stone, waiting to be honored and moved and filled with the spirits of those who have gone unwillingly to the other side, randomly selected by the weapons of war. It is a long and arduous and mixture of pain and euphoria, walking, pulling 2 tons along the road. It seems impossible, but only to those who haven't heard the call. So that's the picture of the stone.
Ah, yeah, that's beautiful and beautifully written with of hope.
Well, it's just been an amazing journey. And I told Lewis, he said, you got to go this summer. And I said, well, if you do it, I will go for a portion of the time. I said, my body is really not ready for that again, but I can get it ready. So, because it's such a beautiful, and actually, we met this Japanese minister in New York when we were in New York with the Stone, and he got in touch with me, about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and he wanted to go to Hiroshima and have this big event. And of course, that had to get canceled.
And
So,
you would have gone there.
I was thinking of it. I talked to him about it and I sent him a lot of materials. I got him in touch with some of the Japanese people who were involved in the Stonewalk there. And, I said, maybe that would happen, so I don't know. It's not going to happen because of what we're facing all over the world. But
And I know you've done healing work for your documentary for Oneness and Wellness again. I'm going back to that, but you traveled with veterans of the Vietnam War, going back to Vietnam.
Right. In fact, I have it's probably too long to read. Do we have enough time to read it?
Oh, we have 4 minutes left.
All right. So before we go there, I'd like to read something about Israel Palestine because lots of things are happening there. And in 2010, I went with Andrea LeBlanc and we went to honor combatants for peace. And this is called Ode to the Seashells. The lights from the soldiers' tower beamed out across the water. We heard their loud voices as we sat on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea in the Negev. This is the Israeli area that borders the Gaza Strip. Yaniv, our friend and host, walked the beach with us in the dark of moonlight as I picked up the little shells. The ode. Ah, little shells, what have you seen and where have you been on your journeys? Did you live at one time on the Gaza shore? Are you Israeli or Palestinian? Do you travel back and forth across the border with the gentle waves? You all look very different, but you are all equally beautiful. Maybe we should become shells like you and let the sea wash away all the pain and suffering so we can bask together on the warm sands of love.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That's about that. And then Vietnam was just a wonderful experience for me, going with the Veterans for Peace, who were making, a journey to make amends with themselves, because the Vietnamese people are so forgiving. So I'll read that as a closing. Revisiting Vietnam, not understanding why, holding my baby, joining with other folks protesting war so long ago, now still seeing the remnants, the victims, the used, the punished, the homeless, those who would never come home again. Then the call, come with us. Where? To that country so far away, yet so present in my memory. Go, my spirit said, listen to the voices, meet the people, walk the land, understand more about suffering, about compassion, and let them tell their stories. I will, I can, beautiful people, humble, holy, without revenge. The secret agent orange, not human, but humane, a killer of vegetation, of animals and people. Bombs explode alive in the ground. Children died. We dropped the bombs, 615,000 or more. Veterans for Peace helped to educate, to heal, to restore themselves in the land. Allow me in my simple way to speak my truth, to honor each and everyone who mourns the loss of son, daughter, sister, brother, mother, father. To pick sides is unnecessary. They are all victims. Come, angels of light from the beyond, heal us all. Like the man I met last week at my grandparents' day. After I told him of my trip, he said, I will never return there. They tried to kill me. And I thought for a minute, and then I asked him, and what did you do? You tried to kill them. And that, my friends, is war.
Mm, no, thank you, Dot.
So this is
Well, my goodness, that was a very fast here and there journey we just took of a small sample of your work, of your years. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done, that you have paved with stones, with human beings here and across the world. And I know there's more. You have your hand in different pots to work on our post-pandemic world. Any last word as I have to say goodbye to you? And I thank you so much.
well, thank you. I really appreciate this time to be with you. And I just appreciate what you're doing for the community and reaching out and asking people to come together, to share their stories, to share their poems, whatever it is, the healing that comes with that is just, I think is wonderful. So thank you. Namaste. Thank you for the work that you do.
All right. Thank you, Dot, and best wishes as you are moving on. Thank you so much again.
We'll be in touch.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, and you can find Dot's work, her writing, as I mentioned, on Amazon, as well as Damiano's Publishing. And I know that if you check on the internet, you might find her working on other books to be. So I am delighted that Dot could join us during her busy packing time. And now we have Carolyn Waters to join for the second half. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me and welcome to my home.
Yes, well, it looks lovely, and I haven't seen you for a while, so it's great to see you. I'm so glad you can be a part of this evening as well. And I know that you're involved with a program that um, let's see, you're involved with a program tomorrow that Dot Walsh actually is also connected with, um, and maybe we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I'll just let the folks know who have tuned in a little bit about you from your bio that Carolyn Waters, you're coming in this evening from Worcester area, and you're a singer-songwriter who's performed in Boston and the East Coast as a solo performer and also as a lead singer in the Rusty Mike's Blues Band. And your style has been described as socially conscious soul, and that music is often used as a tool to promote healing and positive change, as well as in performance. And as a songwriter, Carolyn, that you use songs to support and encourage and also challenge people to examine and change the world in which they live, which I thought was really interesting way to describe being a songwriter and getting people to pay attention through words of songs. And also that you have 3 CDs of your songs out in the world, and you offer voice lessons and voice healing lessons as well. So there's a lot of different things we can talk about as well in a little bit of time. I look forward to hearing more from you. Do you want to start with a song?
We could start with a song. Yes. So this is a song um, that I have been starting my shows with for a while, um, because it's been very personal to me in terms of how I'm relating to the world and how my community, being sort of like my African American community, how we're feeling about the world um, these days and in the last few years with so many deaths and things that we have to cope with. But it also, I think, applies to what we're going through today with this pandemic, when some of us might feel like we're rudderless right now. And so I think it fits there as well. So um, I'll just jump in. And I'm hoping that people who are watching or tuned in, if you know these songs, to jump in and sing along as well. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, so far away from my home. Sometimes I feel like my hope's almost gone. Sometimes I feel like my hope's almost gone. Sometimes I feel like my hopes almost gone, leaving me far away from my home. But sometimes I feel like I see a light. Sometimes I feel like I see a light. Sometimes I feel like I see a light, guiding me way back to my own. Everybody. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, so far away from my home.
Wow, Carolyn, thank you. Socially conscious soul indeed. That is such a powerful performance of that song a cappella. Nonetheless, I know you have performed that song often in the past in concerts and different events. What is your hope for singing a song like this, sharing it out in the world?
Well, I think, first of all, it's very cathartic for me to be able to express what I'm feeling in that way. Um, and so, first, it's very cathartic for me. And second of all, it sort of, I think, expresses where we are as a people. It's an old spiritual that's over 100 years old. And so this was a song that, slaves used back 100 years ago, 150 years ago, um, to express the way that they were feeling in the moment.
Mm.
And third, I changed the last lyric a little bit because I want there to be hope.
Yeah.
Um, and so, along with it being cathartic and for me wanting to get emotions out and me hopefully touching other people, I want to always leave in a moment of hope that things can get better, things are working themselves out, and the world will wake up and want to be kind to one another and just be a good place. So,
Yeah, that's a great big answer, and that is what we need at this time in the world. So please sing it loud and clear and often, and just so beautifully as you did. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you also write your own songs,
I do.
and you have been performing them out in the world for how long would you say?
Oh, I would say maybe a little over a decade at this point.
Yeah.
I got started finding my voice, um, both vocally and finding my voice as a singer songwriter rather late in the game, although it's never too late. But so it was about 10 years ago that I really uh, felt confident in using my voice and also figuring out I had something to say that I wanted to share with the world. So,
Yeah, yeah. Oh boy, and that had been just eagerly waiting. I know that you had been quiet in terms of being a singer in your years before, and it took a certain time in your life and some singer songwriter mentors also who guided you.
I I did. I sort of my voice was quieted when I was a kid. I always did love to sing and do things like that, but I was teased a lot. So I found myself going further and further away from my voice. Although back when I loved to sing as a kid, I didn't like to write, or I didn't envision myself writing my own songs or putting my thoughts and feelings into words. But I connected so much with the other things that I was hearing around me, that I was expressive that way. That went away for a long time. until I found the person that I think I was meant to meet, to take me on this vocal and music and self confidence journey. Her name is Lorraine Lee Hammond. I always put her name out there as much as I can, because truly, without having met her, I never would have embarked on this journey, which is my life now. I was about to say the biggest part of my life right now, and there are other things, but it's really who I believe I'm supposed to be in this world. So it is the biggest part of my life right now.
Well, that's great to hear and important to hear about mentors. And what do you find that you are called to write songs about? And you are prolific, you have 3 CDs.
I started out writing songs about pretty much what I know, and it continues to be what I write about. So I think my initial songs were about me and my feelings of being lost in the world, where I really didn't think that I fit in the way that I was supposed to, because I was sort of moved away from my voice. And so when I first started finding my voice again, and actually wrote my first songs, it was sort of like about the experiences of finding myself and my voice again, and my family, because it's who and what you know and what's all around you. And so in the earlier times, it was definitely about finding myself, finding my voice, and my experiences with family and family members. As I was more comfortable in expressing opinions, it was the things that I saw in the world that it didn't really sit right with me, and things that I thought that I needed to comment on in the big bad world that we live in. And hopefully, if I got the ear of one person who would listen to my point of view or the way that I saw things, then maybe, you know, it would start to change a little bit. And someone told me early on that the more personal something is, to you as a songwriter, the more universal it will be to the world out there. And I found that to be true a lot of the times. It might feel very, very personal to me, but for every me, there's maybe 1,000 other people who might feel the same way. So, yeah.
And and so you've been sharing these kind of songs in solo performance and with your band and different all different kinds of venues, concerts, and maybe more lecture type experiences. How is that going for you, sharing these songs out in the world with these words of hope and for a different kind of a caring world?
I think it is going well. Of course, we have to find other ways to be expressive right now. Um, well, folks like you still give us the opportunity to reach out and touch people. But I think it's most important now more than ever to sort of have a positive voice out there. Even, and we all have these mornings when we wake up and we don't even feel it. You know, we don't even feel that everything is going to be all right. Um, but, for me, music usually changes the direction, for me personally on that. And so, what I write about and what I put out there, I want it to be healing, for other people as well.
And you're doing voice healing work and voice lessons also for people.
I am, and I do it for a specific group of people. Like I mentioned earlier, I lost my voice when I was young. I didn't feel like it was safe for me in this world to express what I wanted to or needed to express. For me, earlier on in my life, it wasn't met in a positive way. And so I was taken away from my voice. And it took a few decades before I met that person who taught me that it was okay. And so not only was she the first person in my adult life to say that it was okay, that I had a voice, um, and that if I had something to say, it was my duty to say it and that it was okay to say it. Um, and so I like to work with people for whatever reasons, whatever messages they've gotten over their lifetime, that it's not okay to sort of put your voice out there, your opinions are wrong or not needed, or whatever negative message that has shut us down. I like to reach those folks and say, oh no, you have every right to put your voice out in the universe. And so those are the groups of people that I really like working with. We sort of take gentle steps towards the path of people finding their voices again. So,
Gosh, yeah, well, and that's so important now. As you spoke about, just as you got started, there's so much work we need to do to get to a better place in this world as we rise up from the pandemic and work on universal healing together. So, Carolyn, I notice we have, oh gosh, 9 minutes, and we're gonna have to. So how do you want to close? I know I hope for at least one more song for you. Um,
yes, we've been chatting away.
I know.
So, one of the things, that in addition to my solo work and my performing, solo and with various accompaniment and my blues band, is that smaller collaborations along the way. You mentioned Furious Dance, where it was a collaboration of voice and dance, and we did a couple of things, inspiration weekends in Provincetown, where it was wider poetry and singing and dance and movement. And we've done some collaborating
Yes.
through poetry and voice, which I really have enjoyed and look forward to us doing more of that. But I thought maybe we would sort of stick and do one of our collaborations um, in some of the remaining time that we
Oh,
have together.
oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I know you brought this up today. Uh, okay, but I also like the idea of that other song you're going to sing. So it's up to you. It's up to you. You want to do a little sample of ours and then go to your other song? What do you prefer?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's
What if
do
we
that.
did like just the first two that we do?
Okay.
Okay, so and the idea of this is we've been doing some performance together, mashing poetry, and your song and music, and it's been a
Yes.
true pleasure. So the idea is to just get started with the poem, and in this case, it's about the outdoors, right?
Yep.
All right. So here's the first part of a poem that we have collaborated on. Sometimes I get confused, thinking this place is of heaven, not of earth, when nature can't help but invade human element, causing possession of all my actions. Free will is gone. Like when a little tuft of wind fingers through my hair, attaches to vertebrate, setting spine a chill, sending leaves on trees into spiral states of giddy, with wind laughing back heartily.
And with this, we put a bum, 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 bum. And I sit by the water, feel the summer breeze, run the earth through my fingers, hear the winds talk to me, makes me want to fly, fly, fly away home. Makes me want to fly, fly, fly away home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
And that's how it goes. That's a little sample of that
Yes.
performance, right? Thank you for inviting me to do that last minute today, Carolyn.
Yes, it was last minute, and thank you for playing along. But I think um, our collaboration is very important to me as we have the same goals of sort of putting positivity and healing out into the world. And it takes different forms. And, I really like when we get together and sort of do our thing just as well as I like when I'm out there sort of doing the solo stuff. So,
Same
yeah,
here. My pleasure. And I'm so glad you could come and talk about your own voice and sharing your songs. And we have 5 minutes, I see. And I did want to very quickly mention you're involved tomorrow before you sing this last song. Can you
yes,
talk about that? We Did It For You is on at 2 o'clock. Uh,
three,
oh, 3 o'clock. Okay.
3 o'clock live. Yeah. And we're sort of doing a live dramatic reading um, of a shortened version of We Did It For You. It's through the suffrage years because now we're at a 100-year anniversary of suffrage. And so
Women's right
we,
to vote, right?
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. And so it's very important to continue to get the word out. I think it's a very important play. It's a very wonderful piece of work by playwright Thea Iberol. So when we're opened up again, I encourage everybody to go and see it. But until then, we have this going on tomorrow at 3 o'clock, a live reading with 18 different women, all in costumes, reading from historical periods throughout the last couple of 100 years. So it's an amazing piece of work. And um, we
That,
did it for you.org. We'll have all the information you will need if you want to come and see us tomorrow. And I hope you do. But it
all right.
starts at 3.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you. Another great way you're getting your voice out into the world to make a difference. And I would just like to suggest, I know we have about 3 minutes, so we go off. I wonder if you could just sing us out. We might end before you end your song. That's okay with the crew behind the scenes. I would love to hear this song. It's a favorite of mine. Thank you so much, Carolyn. It's carolynwatersmusic.com, right? To learn more about.
Absolutely. And
Her.
thank you again for having me. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Save us, come on and save us, save us, come on and save us in this world. In this world, love, just a little more love for us. Love just a little more love for us in this world. In this world, in this world, in this world.